Hi, everyone. It is not an insult or a judgment on one's character if they experience mental illness. It is not something that should be hidden or that should be shamed. The aim should be to restore one to a healthy mental state. It is neither helpful nor wise to deny mental illness out of a sense of loyalty or protection of one's community, religion, their reputation. From Bergman's research, he gives a typical response that he has found to people who question mental illness existing among Jehovah's Witnesses, or certainly existing to a higher rate. So this is his comment on that. When the typical witness is confronted with information about the mental health problems in the Watchtower organization, he or she often totally refuses to acknowledge the validity of this research. In rebuttal, the witness may repeat the Watchtower's official teaching that, and here he quotes from an Awake, March 8, 1960, quote, "The Christian Witnesses of Jehovah are the best-oriented, happiest, and most contented group of people on the face of the earth. They get along better with each other than do people of any other religion, tribe, or social group, and therefore have the least need for psychiatrists." The Watchtower added that the evidence is that Jehovah God has a New World Society operating earthwide today, and that it is through it that true happiness can be found. Witnesses tend to accept this view as valid, even though their own personal experience is often contrary to the above oft-repeated statement. Witnesses rationalize this conflict by subordinating their personal experience to the Watchtower's teachings, feeling that their experience must be unusual or uncommon. In the writer's clinical work, he has spent thousands of hours listening to mentally troubled witnesses pour out endless doubts and accounts of personal troubles and fears, many of which relate to perpetual personality conflicts within their congregations. Now, just a side point, when I read this in the book, the initial time through, I remember being reminded of something by this quote from the Awake, March 8, 1960. It triggered a memory for me. So I'll repeat the quote. "The Christian Witnesses of Jehovah are the best-oriented, happiest, and most contented group of people on the face of the earth." That triggered in my mind a memory of a movie we had watched starring Frank Sinatra called The Manchurian Candidate. I don't know if you've seen it. But in it, I'm going to quote you what the character that Frank Sinatra plays, Ben Marco, says. He is coming out of war, and he has concerns with his own mental state. He says, "I tell you, there's something phony going on about Raymond Shaw, about the whole Medal of Honor business." Raymond Shaw was supposed to be the one to rescue him and his crew. "I said, Raymond Shaw is the kindest, warmest, bravest, most wonderful human being I've ever known in my life. And even now, I feel that way, this minute. And yet somewhere in the back of my mind, something tells me it's not true. It's just not true. It isn't as if Raymond's hard to like. He's impossible to like. In fact, he's probably one of the most repulsive human beings I've ever known in my all of my life." So the phrase that reminded me of the Awake magazine was, "Raymond Shaw is the kindest, warmest, bravest, most wonderful human being I've ever known in my life." And when he says it in the movie, it's like he goes into a trance and he just says this out. And to me, I can see a witness in a trance saying, the Christian Witnesses of Jehovah are the best oriented, happiest, most contented group of people on the face of the earth. It just rang that bell in my head. I don't know if it would for you, but I wanted to share that. Now, Bergman also talks more about his experience as a therapist, and he says this. The writer has found in his therapeutic role that a significant number of witnesses would not have entered therapy if the writer had not been viewed as a witness in good standing. Jerry Bergman was a witness, and he had patients while he was a witness that were witnesses. That's why they felt comfortable. Witnesses are often ashamed of the fact that they have emotional problems, since this condition does not support their view that they are in general happy and well-adjusted people. Because of this belief and the concern of bringing reproach on Jehovah's organization, they often do not seek professional help. Many sincerely believe that being part of Jehovah's organization should prevent emotional problems, and that the presence of emotional problems is therefore a frightening contradiction of their faith. Their reluctance to seek professional help not only includes witnesses with neurotic problems, but also those that are clearly psychotic. The writer has worked with many witnesses who were actually catatonic, and this word I don't really know, hebephrenic, schizophrenic, suffering from severe depression or even brain tumors, who would not consult a psychiatrist because of their fear that by doing so they would in some way tarnish the Watchtower Society's image. Of the millions of persons raised under the influence of the Watchtower Society and later disassociate themselves from the society, many fail to identify themselves as witnesses. Because they had a witness upbringing and often still hold to the basic witness belief structure, they should be included in the statistics on witness mental health or mental illness. So I think this is the reason behind him thinking that there's a higher rate among witnesses, because many people who leave still have all that baggage in their head. So they still should be considered witness in that sense, because they still have those beliefs and that whole structure in their head. So I think that's why he says there's a higher rate. So many people either don't get baptized or study with witnesses and have that witness ideas in their head, but they don't consider themselves Jehovah's Witnesses. Then he gives, I'm going to read you a very sad case history about resistance to getting help from a psychiatrist. Okay. A young married witness with an infant child experienced several radical behavior changes. His wife consulted a psychologist who, expecting the source was either depression or some type of brain tumor, suggested that the patient, the husband, undergo a complete physical examination. The witness family had consulted the elders, who ridiculed this idea, stating that this advice was worldly and therefore incorrect. They stressed to the wife that she should rely on Jehovah's higher wisdom. The elders concluded that it was a case of demonism, especially in view of the fact that the family, which were quite poor, purchased most of their furniture at a local Salvation Army store. The Salvation Army is considered, as are all non-witness religions, to be demon-controlled. They therefore concluded that the furniture must be demonized. Their solution was to destroy the furniture. A few pieces at a time were burned in the backyard until his wife, seeing that this was not working, her husband continued to regress, stopped the burnings. After about a year had elapsed from her original concern, the husband's behavior had deteriorated to the point where he would spend hours sitting in a chair and staring into space. He often excreted in his chair and refused to eat. At this point, his wife finally took him to a medical doctor. The diagnosis was a brain tumor. To complicate matters further, because brain surgery typically involves a large blood loss, it took several weeks to find a surgeon willing to operate without a blood transfusion. They finally located an agreeable doctor in another city, but the witness died on the way to the hospital. This case was especially tragic because had the witness visited the doctor sooner, it is likely that he would not have died. A whole year passed from the onset of the symptoms and the trip to the hospital. A very sad story. I'm going to link to a video of Ray Franz, discussion of his material, Do Others Do Your Thinking? And a second video, that's the first of 3 that David did, called Destructive Religious Groups. So we'll link you to the first one, but there's 3 in it to watch. Till the next time.